Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Front Page, a show brought to you by Cayuga Community College. It's shown on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, and Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. We are delighted to have in the studio today Liz Smith, the Executive Director of Unity House, who has been there for about 30 years. We brought her on to talk a little bit about what Unity House does, its services. You have an awards program coming up in a couple of weeks, but just as importantly, you made your decision to retire after 30 years. So we might squeeze that in. So welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So first of all, for those who may not know, what is Unity House?
So my elevator speech for Unity House is this. We're a nonprofit organization. We provide services to people with disabilities, primarily those with mental illness, those who are diagnosed with intellectual and developmental disability, as well as people who are in recovery from substance use disorder.
So many people would think of Unity House most likely 2 directors ago when you were all over the Case Mansion.
Yeah, remember that?
Yes, I do. So you have evolved. You've evolved both physically in your physical plan, but also geography-wise.
Yes.
So you're not just a Cayuga County agency.
No, we're not. We're actually located in 7 counties in this central
So what areas,
region.
where do you cover from where to where?
Okay, now you're testing my
geography,
knowledge, right?
Yes.
So we're in Onondaga County, Cayuga County, Tompkins County, Tioga, Seneca, Wayne, and I believe we just started providing services up in Oswego.
And so with that, how large a staff do you have?
So if I'm fully staffed, we budget for about 500 employees. We've been experiencing a staffing crisis for the last 5 years, and we're operating at about 320.
Which is well below what your numbers are.
That is correct.
So if we can segue on that, I want to ask about, you are one of the few agencies, if I turn on Channel 9 or Channel 3 or Channel 5, I see a Unity House ad. It's not necessarily to offer services, but it's literally recruitment.
Yes.
How big a challenge is that? And is it just a challenge post-COVID, or was it a challenge before that too?
I would tell you that just prior to COVID, we were starting to see a decline in applications for positions, and we had about 80 open jobs, right? Post-COVID, it went as high as 144 open positions. I think COVID had an impact on that idea of work-life balance, and people weren't willing to do ungodly hours and they wanted flexibility.
Not like when you started in 1988.
Right, right. And so you went to work and you worked whatever shift it was, and so that definitely had an impact.
But you are putting a lot of resources in recruitment alone.
Oh, we are. That has been my whole focus for the last 5 years, has been on recruitment and retention, on advocating for rates that will allow us to pay good wages. It's sad to think that the frontline staff at Unity House actually qualify for benefits because they're not making a living wage.
Is it a recruitment and a retention issue, or just one or the other?
It's both.
Okay.
Right? It's a recruitment. A lot of people just aren't interested in this kind of work, and it's not a high-paying job. And then from a retention perspective, when you're having constant turnover, right, retention strategies become critically important because you want to be able to keep those people who are staying.
So 500 employees, how large? That's a large budget.
Yes, it is.
What's your annual budget?
About $25 million.
And you're a not-for-profit, but where do you get most of your funding from?
70% of our money comes from Medicaid.
Okay. All right.
The balance would be contracts.
So let's talk about Medicaid for a second, since you brought it up. You were one of the first local leaders to take a stand with the topsy-turvy last 60 days we've had with the new administration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any doubt about that, but a lot of it was about the cuts that you were worried about. So you were out there very concerned before there was a continuing resolution and whatnot. What was your overall concern?
My overall concern is that these services that we provide to the neediest people in our community have always been underfunded. And for the last 30 years, I have spent every February in Albany advocating for better rates. And we went 10, 12 years where they didn't give us any kind of cost of living adjustment or inflationary increase. And so really our funding started to fall behind when you think about the fact that the cost to do business and to live kept going up, but our funding was staying flat.
So before the continuing resolution, which we'll get to in a second, your concern was that there were cuts on the table in February, whether you want to say they were from DOGE or they were going to trickle down to the states. Was that more of a concern about consumers getting reimbursement or Unity House getting reimbursement, or a combination of both?
It's a combination of both, because the people that we're supporting, they rely on Medicaid as a form of health insurance, right? And that Medicaid also offers them the opportunity to be able to get into services like Unity House. So it concerns me from that perspective, because that gives them access to health care and social determinants of health. And it affects Unity House, right? So we get a rate which is, sorely lagging, and now we have a potential cut, and we've worked so hard to get to where we are. So it's both.
This was the end of February. In the last, about 2 weeks ago, there was a continuing resolution that was passed by Congress. There's been a whole lot of talk about Chuck Schumer and his reversal and all that. With what they did, which is roughly a 6-month pause, they don't have to take action.
Right.
They will get to the debt ceiling issue in the summer, which will throw things off. Did the continuing resolution codify cuts to Medicaid?
Not that I'm aware of at this point. All I know is that they have a dollar amount that they want to save in mainly the Medicaid program.
Right. So you expect that you will still see some cuts coming through the summer?
They want to save they want to find $880 billion. That's almost $1 trillion in the Medicaid system. To find that kind of money, there has to be a fundamental change in the structure of Medicaid. And with that, it would definitely impact.
And you're part of a coalition that has been fighting to change, the system, but also the funding mechanism.
You mean through my associations that I belong on? Yeah.
So how do you, what's the case you make, and is anybody listening?
Well, believe it or not, we are members of the New York Alliance for Inclusion and Innovation, which is an association for the IDD services, and we're
IDD is?
Intellectual Developmental Disabilities. And thank you, because we have a lot of acronyms, right?
Yes, we do have.
And then I'm also on the board for the Association for Community Living, which focuses on organizations that provide housing for people with mental illness. And those associations really do have an in with like the governor's office and DOB, and then obviously the state oversight agencies.
Do you see, if there is this cut from Washington to Albany, that Albany will have to or will be willing to make up that shortfall?
I don't know how they will when New York State's been projecting out a deficit over the next several years. So I don't know how that will play out.
Go back to, you're a not-for-profit, you have a board. How large is your board?
13.
And are they mainly Q County? I know some of your board members.
Yeah, you do.
I do. I looked at the mugshot list here.
Yes.
And I know Ken Knight is your current president, who we worked with a long time ago.
Yes.
How large of the board that you have, how many of them are local, and are there any consumers on the board?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So a majority of them are in the Cayuga County area. We do have a couple of board members that actually live out of state but have family here that sit on the board. And we always have representation from the people that we serve on the board as well.
So if you go to your website at Unity House, which is very easy to use,
Yes.
there's 3 main areas, and we can just break them down for a second of what they are. So you provide, the main areas I looked at were mental health services, substance and use disorders, and then developmental and intellectual disabilities.
Right.
So in the area of mental health, what type of services do you provide?
Okay, so I would tell you that Unity House primarily provides housing and residential services, and we provide that across all 3 different disability groups. And we provide, in addition to housing and residential services, we also have a fairly large day habilitation program in Cayuga County and Tompkins County for people with intellectual developmental disabilities. We have a fairly large supported employment program, and that operates out of Cayuga County and over in Geneva. I'm proud of the supported employment program because Unity House started that program back in 1987, 88, and I was the very first job coach when they started their supported employment.
That was your first job with
That
Unity
was
House.
my first job. And it wasn't ever sheltered workshops or enclaves. It really was about finding people with disabilities competitive employment.
So in doing that, you mentioned properties and housing. How much, first of all, we talked about originally Case Mansion.
Right.
Where's your headquarters now?
The headquarters are at West Middle School.
Okay. And you don't own the building. You're a tenant, am I correct?
No, we are partial owners of that
With,
building.
is it 2 plus 4?
2 plus 4, yeah.
All right. So you have property there,
Yep.
and that is office property.
Yep.
What else do you own, let's just say in the Cayuga County area, where between housing and other facilities?
Oh, holy cow. So we own, our day hab program operates out of 31 Market Street, which is right next to
The firehouse in that area?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right there. And we probably, let me go through this. We got Union Springs, New Life, Oak is Union Springs. Probably 10 houses that we own, plus we rent.
And how many consumers would live in these houses?
It depends on the house. Some have 4 people living in it. Some might have up to 8 people living in
So
them.
you have between 40 and 80 people in
4 and 8, yep.
100 people out there.
Yeah.
So that would be that mental health services in there, and you have obviously residential. You also help create, not help create, you guys did create Grace House.
Yes.
So tell us what Grace House is.
Grace House is what most people would understand it to be, a halfway house for people who are in recovery from substance use disorder.
And that's been operational for almost 30 years now?
Yes, it has.
And that's up near Wegmans.
Yep.
I won't say exactly
Yes.
where it is,
Yeah.
but it's there. And so is that the only piece that addresses substance use disorders, or do you have other operations as
We
well?
have other operations. Actually, down the street, we rent a number of apartments. We have what they call supportive living facilities, and basically it's apartments where people, once they go through the program at Grace House, they can transition to the apartment program. There's less staffing and oversight needed at that point, and we continue to support those folks so that they can go back to school, they could get a job, they could try on a vocation. So we have the 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week halfway house, and then the supportive living. Supportive living, actually, we have capacity to serve up to 18 people, but we also have the capacity to serve children with their moms there as well.
And when you say children, what age group?
Right now, they're usually babies and toddlers. I think we have 1 school-age kid.
So the last component of the big 3 that I noticed on your website is obviously developmental intellectual disability services,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is mostly what's in the film when you see the ads.
Yes, because that's the largest portion of operations for Unity House.
So what type of services fall into that category?
So it is the houses. Again, I'll use the term community residences where you're staffing it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We probably have 18, up to 18 homes that serve people in that capacity. We have the apartments program, which is like SLF, scattered apartments throughout the community that people live in. The Day Hab program is very, very popular here in Cayuga as well as Tompkins County. And we also do a little bit of ComHab and self-direction.
What's ComHab?
ComHab is like Day Hab, only it starts at the person's home and it ends at their home. So we pick them up, we go out into the community, and then we bring them home.
So when you've mentioned Tompkins County a couple times, is the bulk of your service area Cayuga and Tompkins County?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We assumed operations of Tompkins County back in '97, and that doubled the size of the IDD services that we were providing, and then we gradually grew that.
So the bulk of the funding that comes to all of these different components is from where?
Medicaid.
So is it all reimbursement? You have to file for it after the fact?
Yeah.
And then where else do you get funding from?
So we also have contracts. We have contracts with New York State. We have through Access VR, which falls under the State Education Department. We also have contracts with New York State Office of Mental Health. And then we have county contracts to do supportive housing, Cayuga County, Tompkins, Tioga, Wayne. So those are contracts where you're given a set amount of money to use.
So you get a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
You're a not-for-profit leader, well known in this community. What do you think is your biggest challenge?
Right now, it's really paying a living wage and staffing for them.
And that takes up?
That has been our focus for 5 years now. There's not one day that goes by that we're not talking about the workforce.
So if you don't mind, I want to talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
You started in Unity House, you said, in 1988. That was your first job?
Yes, that was my first go-around at Unity House, and I worked for about 2 years.
And you took a little break?
I took a little break.
3 children?
I have 3 children.
And that first job entailed what?
It was so I started as relief at the Case Mansion. So I would fill in like if staff were taking vacation or called in sick, and I'd go work in the house. And then they were starting their supported employment program, and I applied for the job coach position, and I got that. And that was a great gig because it was just a part-time job, so it got me out of the house and got me a little pocket money and got me some good experience.
So you left, had some children, came
Yep.
back. What was your first return job?
When I first returned to Unity House, I returned to New Life, which is one of the houses that we operate. It's, in fact, the first house that we opened for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I wrote all of their service plans, their Medicaid service plans, and trained the staff in the plans and reviewed documentation, their documentation around the services they provided, and did the billing and
Always a fun part.
Oh, it was, yeah. So anyway, but
So
it
when
was
did you
great.
become executive director?
It's 15 years, Guy.
And in between there, you were the assistant
I was the chief operating officer.
chief
Yep.
operating officer. And what went into, I've known you for most of your professional life,
Mm-hmm.
so what went into the decision to retire right now?
Well, it's time. The organization is solid. It has a really good reputation in the community. We're financially sound. I've been contemplating retirement, but I thought I could fix the staffing, so that really was what kept me going. And then I had a realization that I don't know if I'm going to be able to move the needle on that particular aspect of the challenges that we have. And so I just felt that it was time. I felt like it was time for me to for somebody else to take over the reins and move the organization in another direction.
And you are the third executive director or fourth?
I think I'm the fourth.
Fourth. So when you are not leaving tomorrow,
No, I'm not. I'm leaving at the end of the year.
at December
31st.
31st, the agency has announced a transition plan already.
Yes.
So when I opened up my mail one Saturday morning and I got to see this cover and I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Where it was announced, but you have a transition plan.
Yes.
You have a successor that's
Yes.
already been named.
Darlene Padala.
And she's been with the agency how long?
Longer than I have been. I've been there 30 years. I believe she's been there 32 years. And she and I have worked together my entire time that I've been at Unity House.
And what does she do currently?
She's the Chief Operating Officer.
And as you look at the end of the year, what are you doing on January 2nd?
I know. Everybody asks me what my plan is, and my plan is to have no plan.
Do you plan to still stay in the area?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, my mom is here, and my daughter is in Rochester.
Rochester,
So, yeah, I'm not going
she's an attorney
anywhere.
there?
Yes, she is.
And so there's a lot of stuff that's still going on at Unity House. I know I want to talk about one thing that's coming
Yes.
up. Who is Fred Atkins?
Fred Atkins, oh my goodness. So Fred was on the board for Unity House, I think for 35 years. And he was the
And
treasurer.
that might have been his shortest service on any board.
right, right.
I met him on the Red Cross board. He
Okay.
and I were on the Red Cross board
Yeah.
together. And just a terrifically lovely
He
man.
was. He really was. And I had been awarded the position of executive director, and he was on the hiring squad, if you will, right? And he knew me, and he grilled me with questions. He was fabulous.
So you've done an award named after
Yeah,
him.
he died, and it was a loss for our organization.
A lot
He
of
was 90
organizations.
right, 94 years old. He was still driving. It was amazing. And so about a year into my executive directorship, I said to Kelly Buck, how can we recognize Fred? I feel like we need to do something to honor his legacy of giving back to the community. And so we went and we met with his sons and their wives, and we floated this idea of doing a community service award, and they were so in favor of it and supportive.
So the award recognizes what? Not who, but what does it recognize?
It recognizes your contributions to your community, your volunteerism.
So not necessarily to Unity House.
No, not to, nope, it could be, to the Red Cross. It can
Okay.
be, as you know, Fred sat on many different
He
boards.
was at the Home, he was on the Red
Right,
Cross.
right.
His name continually comes up in different boards I serve on.
Right.
That I think he served, he was like Walter Lowe, one of those utility players that you saw everywhere.
Yeah.
On there. So this year, you're going to recognize two people. Who are they?
Yes, it's Ashley Mensch for the Open Arms Award and Jim Burlingame.
So let's
for-
deal with Miss Mensch first.
Okay.
What is the Open Arms Award?
Oh, so that is an award that actually the staff internally created, and it wanted to recognize people in the community who were welcome to the people that we support with Open Arms.
And where's she from?
She works for Nick's Ride.
But she's from Tully.
She is from Tully, yes.
And so the other person, who I also happen to know, is Jim Burlingame, who is from Auburn.
Right, and he
what
works at the First Presbyterian, right?
And what? And he's at Jacobs Press now. But what does he do?
You know what? I don't have the specifics on that. I didn't.
But he's a community. He
Yes.
is Red Cross.
He's-
Emergency services.
Yes.
He's one of those individuals who's a utility player.
Yes.
In our community, which
Yes.
we need, and we have lots
I like
of.
that utility player.
So when will they be recognized?
They will be recognized at our annual dinner in April.
And that's at the Holiday Inn.
Yes, it is.
And how can somebody attend?
You can go on our website, and there's probably a link to sign up for the dinner.
There
and
are.
pay
I
for
did
it.
look how to
Did
do
you?
that.
Yeah,
I did.
would be
So,
good.
so
Or
you can purchase tickets there.
Yeah.
They're $85,
Yes.
and it's for the evening, but
Yes.
it's the event. And you usually have a speaker.
Yes,
there.
we do. And this year we have a music therapist coming in. She does a lot of work with the folks in the Ithaca Dayhab program. And so she's going to talk about the benefits of music therapy and I think there'll be a little performance by some of the folks we support.
It's a wonderful event. I've been to the event in the
Yeah.
past, and you do a nice job recognizing. There's a whole list of individuals on your website who've received the award over the years, and
Yes.
it's great. Now I'm going to give you the 3 unfair questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay. What do you think the greatest change has been that you have seen at your agency since 1988?
Oh, that's a hard one. There's so many things. We've evolved and grown, and maybe that's the greatest thing, is that we've evolved and grown. We've been able to meet the needs of the community, and
So a different word I might use would be you've adapted.
we have.
So Unity House, what would have been just at Case Mansion, has adapted and grown
Yeah.
into this, large, when you're fully staffed, 500,
Yeah, employees.
$25 million budget.
Yeah.
It's been. What do you think your biggest accomplishment has been while you've been there?
You know, I tell everybody that I have the easiest job in the world. I've loved what I do, and I think, I don't like to take credit for things where I'm surrounded by talented and creative people, and, I guess my greatest contribution is that I'm always talking and asking and talking and asking and talking and asking. So it creates a lot of dialogue. And transparency, I believe, is very important.
What do you think your legacy will be?
Oh,
I didn't say they were easy questions.
no, I know. Nobody's asked me these questions before, Guy. What do I think my legacy will be?
I know what your staff thinks. So the cover is Person-Centered Leadership was the magazine. That clearly comes from a staff that believes that you're their leader, and that's a great thing. But from your perspective, what do you think has been the legacy?
That I believe in people. I believe in people whether you have a disability or not, and that I have allowed people to be who they are, and not asked people to change. So I think that I'm accepting of everyone, and so I think that would be my legacy.
So separate from the elevator speech, if you want to tell people why Unity House is important, what should they know? Is the last question for you.
Well, I think what people should know about Unity House is that we're actually a community asset. We're paid by state and federal funds that come from the taxpayers. So you should always be interested in who we are, because we're here to support you, the community. And I feel that the services that we provide are critical. We know that mental health and addiction has been on the rise, and it continues to be a problem, and we play an important role in helping people get stable and healthy. I think that the community should just, I guess, understand what it is we do. And we're not just simply supporting the people with disabilities. We are also, in some ways, helping their families, and we provide jobs, and we're a good employer, and I can go on and on now.
No, that's all right. No, you've had 30 great years
Yes.
at Unity House. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On your past service. Something tells me you'll find something to do on January 2026.
I think I will. I think I would love, I'll put it out there right now, I would love to sit on some boards locally. I think I have.
It's easier once you're not the executive director
Right,
somewhere.
and so I would look forward to doing that, because I believe I have a lot that I could contribute to a board, particularly the nonprofit sector.
Our guest has been Liz Smith, the Executive Director of Unity House. Thank you again for
Thank you,
being
Guy.
here, and also good luck on your future endeavors.
Thank you.
We'll be back on Tuesday with two new shows. We'll have Dr. Adam Effler of the Owasco Lake Water Management Council here to give us an update on Owasco Lake and the watershed. And Ellie Colvin will be here talk about the Auburn Chamber Orchestra and two upcoming performances they have here in the community. And among the guests we have is somebody else who's retiring this year as well. Donna Lamb of the Schweinfurth Arts Center will be here in a couple of weeks, as well as Auburn's new police chief, Matthew Androsco, to give us an update on some crime statistics that have been released for the city of Auburn, but also talk about his goals for the agency as he starts his new tenure as their leader. If you'd like to send us your ideas for Inside Government Beyond the Front Page, you can send them at cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino. We hope you have a great evening, have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here in the studio on Tuesday. Great, and we're still on.